I don't know about you guys, but to me it feels very, very weird to be filming with an empty wall behind me. Um, it's very, very bright and white without my posters hanging on the wall behind me, and it looks very weird as I see myself as I'm recording with this just bright, stark white background. It's just very unusual. I don't know if it's throwing you guys off, but it's definitely throwing me off. Yeah, I had to take down my posters, and so it could be a couple of weeks where I don't have my usual background of my anime posters in the background. Hopefully it's not too disconcerting for you. It's definitely very weird for me. Like I said, I can see myself as I'm recording this, and it's very unusual. At first I sat down and I was like, wait, why does it look so weird? And I was like, oh, that's right, because there's nothing behind me. That's why it's so bright. So yeah, hopefully it's not too weird and not too boring for you. Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be talking about the first 5 chapters of the 3rd Belgariad book, Magician's Gambit. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the story so far, and enjoying the start of this next book. Before we go ahead and jump in, let's go ahead and cover the trivia question. The answer for the last trivia question is, they forget their spells after using them. And correct answers were to John B., Dan, Brendan, and Troy. So congratulations to everyone who got it right. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope that you guys will participate in the next trivia question as well. If you want to go ahead over to the website, fantasyfictionfanatics.net, you will find the trivia question there. It's going to be on the right hand side if you scroll down just a little bit on desktop. If you're on mobile, you will probably have to scroll pretty much all the way down to the bottom in order to find it. But I'd be happy for anyone to join us with playing in the trivia questions. I hope you guys are enjoying them. Okay. Quite a bit to talk about. Since it is the start of a new book, as well as some interesting things that are happening in this first 5 chapters. Plus we had the prologue. So let's go ahead and jump right in with our recap. Okay, so we have the prologue, which details of how the god Ul, capital U, capital L, Ul, came to be the god over the unwanted creatures of the world and the unwanted people of the world. And then as we start with chapter 1, we start with Pol, who is tending to Belgariad, and learning what happened while Silk and Belgariad were apart from the rest of the group. Belgariad tells that Beltira, who we don't know exactly who that is at this point, but says Beltira told him that they must go to the Vale, that they have been called. And Belgariad also discusses with Garon his magic, as well as wants to know more about the voice that he has recognized that is calling through Garon. The group starts to travel by land instead of continuing by boat, so they say goodbye to Greldick and send him with a message from them, and they just travel by land with the horses again. And on their journey, while they are stopped, we have Mandarellen, who ends up fighting off a lion in order to protect Sinedra. And during that fight, after it's over, Sinedra and Mandarellen both have something happen between them where Sinedra claims him as her personal knight, and he accepts it and agrees to that. And then they continue traveling forward until they eventually have to hide from some Murgos that are passing, and they see Brill is with those Murgos. And during this encounter, they realize something very important, and that is that Brill is not actually as insignificant as they thought he was. He is actually a, what's the word? A Dagashi. Sorry, it took me a second to find it in my notes. That he is a Dagashi, which is a very important assassin, and that he is actually more of a leader than they expected him to be. But after Brill passes, they are told that there are more Murgos, that there are Murgos everywhere, so they decide to travel through Maragor, which they hadn't planned on before. And so in order to avoid those Murgos, they're going to go through this passage, and Pol and Belgariad puts all the rest of the party to sleep as they are going to travel through Maragor, which apparently has a bunch of ghosts and horrors in it, which Garon does get to see some of, because even though he's been put to sleep, he is still mentally a little bit awake and is able to talk to the voice as they are passing through. Alright, so that is where we ended, is they're in the middle of the Maragor, and Garon has been talking to this voice that he is getting to know and learning more about what this voice is and such. So let's go ahead and talk first off about the prologue. This prologue is interesting compared to the last two, because the first one and the second one, the stories were a bit more linked than this one. So we've got the start of the world and the start of what the trouble is and what's happening. And then we have kind of what happens right directly after that and links, like follows the story of the previous prologue from the first book. But this prologue is a completely new piece of information that we didn't know anything about. So it's a completely new piece of the puzzle of the past that we have not currently been aware of. And especially because it is discussing the god Ul. And we didn't even know about this god until this prologue. We really are delving into Ul and how he came by his people, how he came to be the god over the creatures that were unwanted, the magical creatures of this world. And through that process and learning about that process, we also learn, for example, that creatures like dragons and unicorns and such actually exist in this world, because at this point we haven't run across any of them. So not only are we learning more about the past, about this god we didn't know, we're now learning that there are creatures in this world that we didn't know about. And we're learning about these people that are very close to the god, and the fact that they had to petition their right to be under this god and to have the protection of a god. We also learn that Ul's people actually helped a great deal back in the first war against Torak, and that they were one of the reasons that Torak was able to fall the first time. Ul had his people help against that army. And that now, even to this day, it seems that they are going to have a place and a part to play in this particular journey as well, because we have mention of, in recent times, Belgariad, or at least a man that we're assuming is Belgariad, has come to visit him, as well as we know Belgariad can turn into a wolf, and at times the leader of the people of Ul have been known to be seen with a wolf beside him. So it's definitely interesting, because this is all brand new information that we are being laid out. And partly we don't totally understand what the importance of the fact that of Ul as a god, since he is very much separated from the rest of the group, it seems, and the gods. But what is important about how these people became under this god and the creatures being under this god? How is that going to reflect in the now? And what part are the people going to play now, since we just know that obviously Belgariad still has visited them and keeps in communication with them, even in their hidden city. So what exactly is going to be their place and their help this time? Are we going to see them in this particular novel? That is going to be the question, because we don't exactly know how this is all going to fit together and where our journey is leading us. But obviously it is important enough that we need to know about it at this point in the story. So it is a good guess that Ul or his people are going to at least show up and have some kind of impact on this particular novel and this particular portion of the journey. I'm pretty excited to see what happens, pretty excited to see more about these people, since even though we do know some of their history, we don't really know what they have become and where they are at now in today's society. Obviously, I'm assuming they're still a hidden people, but how have they changed? What are going to be their contributions to the coming time? Let me know down below what you think of this prologue and everything that happened in it, and what you expect to happen with this set of the journey in comparison to the prologue. I would really love to hear your thoughts, your feelings, what your expectations are, or what this has given you an impression of. Okay, so next let's go ahead and talk about the start of this story. Just a couple of points that I want to point out, but obviously, as always with starting off with a story, it's important to keep in mind how it starts off, what's kind of unique about the starting, because the start really sticks with you as a reader often. It's your first interaction with the story, even if you are continuing from a previous book. It really is a good way to figure out where you think this book is going to go and how it's going to draw you into the first place. So we start off very similar as the other ones in the fact that we had the prologue and then we have our parts, because it is separated into multiple parts, and we start off with Maragor as being our part 1, which obviously at the end of chapter 5 we have reached Maragor, so we can understand where part 1 is leading us to. That is something I always find really interesting with these books, is the way he breaks it up is by location, so you can always know that this is the part of the story that happens in this location, and then we are transforming into leading to the next location, how that's going to affect the story and the journey and what kind of encounters they're going to have with this place. And of course, as always, we have the maps at the beginning of each part. So you have the main map at the very beginning, and then you have the more detailed map for the part. So you can actually really see where they're at in specific. And I do really enjoy that, because when you look at the full map here, as you can see, it's like all over the place and you don't know about specifics. You can just see kind of in the area. So with the more detailed map, you can see exactly where they're at and where they're going and what kind of problems they might have because of the surrounding area. So I really do enjoy that about the Belgariad series and David Eddings' choice of doing that. So, last time we had, between book 1 and book 2, we had a very slight jump in time. We had the jump between them traveling to the location they were going to meet Hitar to the location that they were going to meet Hitar. And we don't really know about the bridge of them traveling to that place. Obviously, probably not necessary for us to know anything, and that was why that jump was made, was because nothing specific or extraordinary happened. But between book 2 and book 3, we start off right where we left off. The moment practically that we end book 2, we are picking up with book 3. So obviously this is where good things are coming. We need to know every single little detail, and we have not just jumped forward to being in Maragor. And as we can see with our reading, is there are important things happening, and I do find that the start of this book is also interesting and important because we have the start with a different character. Now until through book 1 and book 2 until the beginning of book 3, we have been pretty much focused on Garon as the narrator. So the narrator does have that separation. It is very clear that there's a narrator and then there is the story, and it is clear that the narrator knows a lot more than the characters, but the narrator has been mostly following Garon around in his experiences. Well, at the start of this book, we have the first 2 or 3 chapters, I believe it's the first 3 chapters, is from following Sinedra and seeing more about Sinedra than it is about Garon or any of the other characters. And that is something that is unique, that stands out, that's very, I feel, important in many ways because this hasn't happened previously. So for whatever reason, David Eddings thought we need to see from Sinedra's point of view at the beginning of this novel. We need to switch it up. We need something different, something unique, and the items that happen in these first couple chapters need to be seen from Sinedra, and that somehow that is going to be important and it's going to be necessary for the story. So definitely really interesting. We've got a brand new piece from the prologue, brand new piece of the puzzle, something never before seen, something that is unique and us that we are completely learning fresh about. And then we jump in with Sinedra, which is completely unusual from the past 2 books. We haven't had anybody else we've really been that close to and been so separated from Garon before. So I find it very, very interesting and would love to know your opinion on why you think he started with Sinedra, since it's not 100% clear, other than we do know a couple of important things happen with her, and we do get a sense of her that we haven't had before. But other than the part with Mandaralin, which could have been still portrayed from Garon's point of view, we just wouldn't totally understand the internalness of it with Sinedra and with Mandaralin. But what do you think was signified by the fact that Sinedra is the one being followed in these first couple chapters? I'd really, really love to hear if you'd let me know your thoughts. So yes, we have the prologue. We've got the first couple chapters with Sinedra, and we're starting off this story very much the same and yet very much different. And it's definitely an intriguing start to our 3rd chapter of this story. So we are now in the middle of everything. So really quick before we move forward, kind of wanting to discuss this a little bit with the start of the story, just since we are starting this portion of the story. But we've had part 1 and part 2, or book 1 and book 2. We are in book 3, which is directly in the middle. And then there's a 4 and 5. So this is the direct middle of this story. We've had our intro, we've got our middle, and then we're going to have our 2 ending books. And I think that that's going to be very interesting to think of as well as the start of this story. Is we're not even halfway done with this journey yet. We will be directly halfway when we get halfway through this book. So I'd really love to know what you think is going to happen, because we still have quite a ways left to go in this journey and with this story, and things are already kind of rolling and getting going. So how do you feel that the middle of this is going to take place? Because obviously we are now in the meat of things. We are not at the beginning. We are in the middle. We know a lot of our characters. We've had a lot of development. We've seen things progressing, and now we are in the thick of things. And we're not yet heading toward an ending or toward a resolution. So what is your expectations for being in the middle of this story? Where do you think we're going? Do you have any ideas? Yes, no? I would love, 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 love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Now, since we started off with Sinedra, and being from her point of view, we really get a chance to look at her a little bit more closely. So let's go ahead and talk about her. The first thing that struck me right away reading these chapters about Sinedra is that she is still very immature. I felt like before, when I was seeing her from Garon's point of view, that you could see that she was still kind of that immature girl, but that she had grown some and that she had matured some and was not quite so stuck up, and kind of got the feeling that she was progressing forward and being a changed person based on the journeys that she's going on. But my opinion of that has kind of backtracked a little bit. Not saying that I'm against her in any way, shape, or form, not saying that I don't think she's grown at all, but I definitely don't think that the impression I was given when seeing her not so closely is that she has matured more than she actually has, and that we are given this look and who she is and where she's at, and it is not that far forward. She still has a lot of maturing to do. She's still very mature. She's very petty at times, and of course that has been shown previously, that she is still very petty, but especially at the start of this, very, very petty. And that her immaturity is different than Garon's, is how I feel about it. So Garon still has some immaturity about him, and though he has grown a whole lot since the start of this story, I do feel like we still see times of his immaturity and his lack of really understanding of the situation, which I don't think that that's totally his fault. Really don't. I think that because he's been withheld information and because of the way he was raised and the way that he has been treated now, kind of buys into why he's having a hard time maturing in all ways. For Sinedra, I think at this point is that she is just so stuck in how she was raised and who she was trained to be that she is having a hard time moving past that. So they definitely have different levels. They're immature on different ways. Both I feel like are kind of immature, but especially looking at her and how she acts in these couple of chapters and how she thinks of things just really shows that she is still in a very immature state. And she is about the same age as Garon, so I mean, they're not super old, they're in their teenage years and stuff like that, so it might be a little harsh to expect them to grow up, though they are on this journey, very important journey. So sometimes journeys and experiences that happen to you can make a person grow and mature faster than they would have normally. But at this point they are still not quite there. They're still on a lower level, still trying to figure things out and trying to grow as people. So something very particular that stood out to me for these is how much Sinedra is stuck on the concept of titles and their meaning, and how that only if you don't have a title, if you're not of important birth, of whatever else, you are not considered an important person. She cannot at all grasp the concept of why Belgariad and Pol are important people. In her experience at this point, she can see that all the people around her, other than Garon, are important people. They're all royalty, they all have titles, they are all high-born, high-class people. But Belgariad and Pol, who have not had that same level of birth, is given an even higher status. Even though they aren't royalty, even though they don't have any of those claims and they don't have those titles, they are seen as very important people and they are followed and respected. And Sinedra just cannot grasp in her brain why anybody would care about anybody who doesn't have a title. So this obviously comes from her birth, from her raising, from who she is and the kind of culture that she lived in. But she honestly just cannot grasp this concept. No matter how much she goes, she cannot grasp the concept that you don't need a title to be somebody worth following. You don't need a title to be somebody who's important. And it doesn't help that she also does not accept who Belgariad and Pol are. She does not believe them to be real magic users. She does not believe them to be thousands of years old. She does not believe any of that. Just believes that they have similar names or names that were from them, and that is why they have similarities. The only reason that she even recognizes most of their lead is because of Pol and how strict she is and how she is somebody who will not be disobeyed. And that is really the only reason that she has been corralled at all. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when she finally moves past this point, when she can finally be shown that her thoughts are in the wrong place, that it is not about the title, it is not about anything, and that is not what makes people important or what makes people have value. And it will be a very big shock if she finally gets it into her brain that these are actual people from back when, way when the world was young. And in many ways, I think she is as stubborn as Garon in the fact that she refuses to open her eyes. Metaphorically speaking, she refuses to be open enough to learn new things about the world, to change, to morph, to accept the things that she didn't know, and to process them and come out another side. So I think part of her immaturity and part of her being so stuck in her mindset is because she is not very open to receiving a different point of view and to testing out what other possibilities there could be out there. I think she is very much stuck in wanting to believe in one thing, and that is that she is correct and that she has always been correct and does not want to be corrected. And that is really causing problems for her being able to mature and to grow. It is also very clear, even though it was been clear for a while now, that she is very smitten with Garon. And this is actually where she has one show of actual maturity. This is where I feel like is a shining little nugget of her and her potential, is when she's talking to Dernick and mentions that she does not have a choice or a say in who she marries, and that right now it does not matter that she likes Garon. It doesn't matter that he is somebody that she would like to possibly pursue something with. And that even though she's not going about it in the right way, she's being very petty in that situation, trying to get things from Garon through manipulation. She does understand that really there's no point in being real with him and trying to actually pursue something with him, and to just use this game that she likes to play to get attention from him, because she has no choice in who she's going to marry. And she does not see that there's any profit in letting herself dream that she could be with Garon, because as a royal woman, her whole contribution, she understands, is to make alliances through marriage. So I do think that that is one way that she was actually very mature and shows that she actually does have a grasp of reality, or at least could have a grasp of reality if she chose to do so and to acknowledge the truth about situations. So I do think that in that way, that was a very good moment and to show Sinedra and not only her weaknesses, but her strength as well. So she's not going about courting or getting attention from Garon, but she does understand this reality of her situation and grasps that really well. Though she also doesn't totally understand that Garon, who she wants, is actually going to be the man that she marries, even though Garon doesn't even realize that that's the case. She's on the way to do a viewing for the to be a bride for the Ribbon King, who she doesn't believe is going to exist, and really it'll be a lot better for her than she thinks. It will turn out more for her favor than she realizes. So at least us as the reader knows this and can have some hope for her, and I think that that's really nice that David Eddings has given us a little bit of that extra knowledge that the characters don't have. Just, well, obviously Pohl and Belgariad know, but most of the characters don't know, and the two that are most important in knowing this fact don't know. And so we can be a little bit of like, ooh, just wait till you find out kind of feeling as we're reading. Now, the last main topic I wanted to discuss is the voice. And we did talk a little bit about him in the last class, since he really showed up and really became part of the story in those last 5 chapters. But in this one chapter, he or she, I mean, I guess we don't totally know that the voice is a he or a she, but it sounds like the way it is described that it's a he. That the voice comes back, has this conversation, and it's a very important conversation. We are really starting to know information to have those gaps filled in, even if we don't totally understand where this voice is coming from. We do get a lot more information about what the voice is and what its role is to play in all of this, and why it's helping Garon. So, the voice tells Garon that it is the knowledge of the original purpose of the world. That the world and the gods and everything that exists came into being for a reason. And that this voice is the pure knowledge of that original purpose, of what is supposed to be the world and what path it's supposed to be on. So it is kind of taken the role of being the guardianship of the path of fate. And there are other paths of fate that have come into play, but this voice is the original purpose, the purpose that it is supposed to have. We don't really know what that purpose is or where the world is supposed to go, but we know that this voice knows where the world is supposed to go and is trying to make that purpose and that a reality. So, because it knows the original purpose, and it knows that that original purpose has been offset by Torak and the events that have happened with Torak, this voice is now helping Garon and priming Garon and doing things with Garon and making itself known with Garon. Because Garon is the key to setting that path back into its normal state. So it got off track, and he's trying to use Garon to push it back onto the track that it is supposed to be on. And not only that, but Garon is the only person that can do this, and without Garon, the world is going to be utterly destroyed. That's a lot of pressure for one person, especially for Garon, I'm sure. We're gonna see how the effects of knowing this will affect Garon. We're also gonna find out how Belgariad and Pol feel about Garon knowing this. We're gonna see if now his role in all of this, that the reader, us as the reader, knows, if he will finally get to know who he is and what his role is to play. But as we've mentioned previously, this is only the middle of the story. This is only book 3 of 5. So it could be a while before he knows as well. We still have plenty of time for him to be ignorant before things get revealed. But the voice has decided it is time for Garon to at least know this, that he is super important and that he is the key to pushing the world back on track. Not only that, but he also made this revelation that he helped Belgariad back when Belgariad was young to be who Belgariad needed to be in order to have his purpose correct in the world. He just did not know it at the time, and he was not aware of the presence of this voice helping him out. So, really gives us some clues of what this voice could possibly be, who it could be from. Obviously, it is not from another human, and the fact that this voice is a lot older than that, it would have to be a sorcerer, at least the same as Belgariad. But we also know that they don't totally recognize this voice. Pol and Belgariad, though the voice knows them, does not know the voice. So that is going to be something very interesting. A discovery that all of the characters, all 3, Belgariad, Pol, and Garon, who know of this voice, is going to have to find out who or what the voice exactly is. And we do know that it is the knowledge of the purpose of the world, but we don't understand if that means that that this voice is coming from a living being that's just very old and was born to know this purpose, or if maybe it's coming from some other thing, if it's coming from a god or what. We don't really know yet exactly what the background of this voice is. We don't know where the source of the voice is. Let me know down below. Of course, if you have any comments or questions or concerns about any of the topics, especially if you want to let me know what you think the voice is, who you think the voice is, whatever else, I would love to have a discussion with you. So hopefully you will let me know if you have any thoughts on the voice or on any of the other topics that I have mentioned so far. And last but not least, let's go ahead and just cover the nitty-gritty. I have 3 things that I would like us to keep in mind as we continue forward with reading that I think is important to keep in mind, to think about. Maybe if you would like to share your opinion with me about them, I would love to hear it. So 1, we've got this little nugget or this little piece of information that I think is important, which is that Belgariad mentions that the war that is supposed to happen is coming too soon. So what does that mean? And what war is supposed to happen but is coming too soon? Now we obviously know that there's probably going to be a war with Torak, but what is setting it into motion that is so coming too soon? And I thought we were, in some ways it makes it seem like we're trying to stop a war from happening, but obviously a war is supposed to happen. It's just not supposed to happen yet. So how are they going to stop this war from happening? Are they going to stop this war from happening? And what exactly does this war entail? Next is that Belgariad doesn't know who or what the voice is, which I have already mentioned. And, you know, the impression was that the voice knew them and that they kind of talked back in the recognition of the voice. But it seems that they don't actually know who or what the voice is. So that's something very interesting. I think we should keep that in mind and find out what it means moving forward, especially since they have known everybody and everything since before this point. And last but not least, the Marags. We have been mentioned, at least I believe that's how it's said, M-A-R-A-G-S, Marags, something like that. These people are a society of mostly women that are cannibals, and they are cannibals for religious reasons, and we are now coming up on them. So we will see what that means. Yeah. Alright, that is everything I wanted to talk about for the first 5 chapters of Magician's Gambit, Book 3 of the Belgariad. I'd love to know how you're liking the book and the series in general. Any comments, questions, concerns, any thoughts you have, please go ahead and leave them down below for me. Yeah. If you have trouble reaching me down below, if commenting is not the best way for you, you're also welcome to follow me on Twitter, which is at fantasyfiction1. You're welcome to follow me on there. I do post things and updates on there, and you're welcome to contact me through there. Or you can follow me and contact me through Facebook, which is /fantasyfiction1. Or you're welcome to head over to the website if you want to join the trivia question, if you want to contact me, or if you just want more content from me and want to read any of the blog pieces or anything that is over there, you can do so. It's going to be at fantasyfictionfanatics.net. So you're always welcome to let me know about any content you'd like to see on the blog as well. I would be happy to write a blog post, do a book review, whatever else you'd like to see on there as well. So go ahead and let me know about that. You are also welcome to join the Discord. Our Fantasy Fiction Fanatics Discord has several people on there already chatting, talking about fantasy, talking about writing, talking about anything and everything, just with other people with like interests, talking about different stories that we were talking about on here. You can also reach me on there since I am on there as well, chatting with everybody. So hopefully we will see you on there and can chat it up and discuss all the different things that we like about fantasy. And any updates and announcements are also on there, so you can be kept apprised of anything that's coming up for Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. Hopefully you will subscribe if you liked this video and want to see more from me. You're welcome to do that as well. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Thank you so much. Go ahead and read chapters 6 through 10 of Magician's Gambit for the next discussion. For me, on this copy, it's pages 61 through 119. And I hope you guys continue to enjoy the journey of the Belgariad series. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!